Here on Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Nermeen Sheikh.
We end today's show by looking at Burma. The United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has warned the brutal Burmese military operation against Rohingya Muslims is at risk of spiraling into an ethnic cleansing campaign as the violence against the long-persecuted minority group continues. The UN says almost 150,000 Rohingyas have fled the predominantly Buddhist country into neighboring Bangladesh in the last 12 days since the military operation began, with up to 15,000 more expected to flee every single day this week.
Advocates say as many as 800 Rohingya civilians, including women and children, have been killed in recent days. This is Rohingya Muslim Salma Begum, one of the tens of thousands who fled to Bangladesh following the army crackdown, which began last month.
They burned our houses. We could not take our belongings. We were hiding near a hill for 2 days. We were there in the rain without food and with my children. When we heard the sound of shooting, we took a boat and crossed the sea to come here to Bangladesh.
Burma's de facto leader and Nobel Peace Laureate Aung San Suu Kyi has blamed terrorists for what she termed, quote, a huge iceberg of misinformation about violence in the western part of the country. More than 300,000 people have signed a petition calling on the Nobel Committee to revoke her Peace Prize over her response to the violence. Meanwhile, accusations have emerged that Burmese security forces have been planting landmines along the Bangladesh border to prevent fleeing Rohingya from returning. Burmese officials said Wednesday they're lobbying powerful allies, China and Russia, to prevent a UN Security Council resolution on the issue.
Talk more about the issue. We are joined right now by two people to talk about both the Rohingya in Burma and those who have fled to Bangladesh. In London, Toon Khin, president of the Burmese Rohingya organization in the UK, born and brought up in Burma's Arakan state in 1982, rendered effectively stateless along with 1 million other ethnic Rohingya under a new nationality law. Here in New York, Richard Weir, fellow in the Asia division covering Burma at Human Rights Watch, based in Burma last year. We welcome you both to Democracy Now! Toon Khin, what is happening to the Rohingya, to your people? Explain for a global audience who may have never even heard of that word before, the Rohingya Muslim minority in Burma.
Rohingya people are native people of Arakan state. They're living in Arakan state early 7th century AD, according to the history. After we got independence from British 1948, Rohingya were recognized as an ethnic group of Burma. On that time, Rohingya parliamentary members and MPs are there. According to the history, Rohingya were living the early 7th century AD. The thing is, Burmese government systematic persecution started in 1962 when General Nemu took power. So that what we are facing today is the last stage of genocide. Rohingya been stripped of their citizenship, stripped of their ethnic right. They were not allowed to move from one village to another. They are not allowed to get married. They can't go to higher education. That's what we've been facing many years in our kind of states. What's happening now is since 25th August, Burmese military launched attack when some Rohingya militant attacked some police posts. So by taking that excuse, Burmese military targeting the whole Rohingya population, according to our information we received from Arakan state, at least 30,000 Rohingya been killed, shot dead and slaughtered, and including elderly men, women and children. We are receiving information that many children been thrown to the fire. Burmese army continuously burning down Rohingya villages until today, and some sources are saying death toll could be more than 7,000, and thousands of Rohingya houses burned down. According to the information we receive, in 180,000 Rohingya IDPs, humanitarian crisis is growing in Arakan state. 30,000 Rohingya have been trapped in a mountain. There is no food, no shelter, no medicine for them. And it is very horrific situation we are facing in our history, that should not be happening in 21st century, where death toll is increasing and children are dying day by day. Is a quite I should say is been going a last stage of genocide, where government is targeting the whole population to wipe out Rohingya minority from Burma.
Well, Human Rights Watch has published new satellite imagery that shows 700 buildings burned in the Muslim village of Chain Kharli in Rakhine State. The imagery shows that 99% of the village was destroyed. Now, we're also joined by Richard Weir, a fellow in the Asia Division at Human Rights Watch. You were based in Burma last year. So, first of all, tell us what this satellite imagery showed.
Right, so this satellite imagery shows that a village primarily occupied by the Rohingya population is completely destroyed. So the damage that we're seeing is consistent with burn damage. And that's something that we've only been able to see one village out of 21 unique sites that we've identified where there have been active fires. And so this is just sort of a small window into the sort of destruction that's occurring in northern Rakhine State.
Well, what's happening now is reportedly unprecedented. I mean, despite the fact that the Rohingya minority has been targeted for decades, it's unprecedented in terms of the sheer violence and brutality that's been deployed by the Burmese security forces. Could you explain why this is happening now?
Well, as we've been discussing, the Rohingya population has been discriminated against and attacked on various occasions throughout many decades. And this series of attacks follows another set of attacks in October 2016, where very similar violence was documented by Human Rights Watch, by other organizations, including the UN, which said those violations very likely amounted to crimes against humanity. And those attacks and the scope and the scale of the destruction wrought was less than what we're seeing right now. We haven't seen this number of villages on fire, and this is something that we just haven't seen before. I
want to go to the role of the Nobel Peace Laureate Aung San Suu Kyi, who was imprisoned for like 15 years. She has faced widespread criticism for her response to the crisis. She's considered sort of the de facto leader of the Burmese now, working closely with the Burmese military. She initially blamed, quote, terrorists for what she termed, quote, a huge iceberg of misinformation about violence in Western Burma. Earlier today, she said her government is doing its best to protect everyone in the strife-torn state of Rakhine, but she did not refer specifically to the exodus of the Rohingya in recent weeks.
We have to take care of our citizens. We have to take care of everybody who is in our country, whether or not they are our citizens. It is our duty, and we try our best. Of course, our resources are not as complete and adequate as we would like them to be, but still we try our best, and we want to make sure that everyone is entitled to the protection of the law.
So that's Aung San Suu Kyi, Richard Weir. What is her role here?
Well, her role is she's the de facto leader of the government. And she's not only that, but she is the leader of the people. And as a former lauded human rights advocate, she needs to do more, not just as an advocate, but as the leader of a government that requires the protection of all the people in the states. And frankly, her comment that they're doing all that they can is not borne out in our research. What we're hearing from people that have fled to Bangladesh is that the military is firing on villagers, is using bombs to attack them. It's just not what she's saying has not been borne out by our research.
More
and people
than 300,000 people have signed a petition calling on the Nobel Committee to revoke her Peace Prize. How responsible is she? I mean, she is not the official leader of Burma yet, but of course considered the de facto leader. A person who's been jailed by the military for so many years, now working closely with the Burmese military.
Well, the problem is that in the Burmese constitution, the 2008 constitution, Constitution, there is a divide between who controls what in the government. And the Senior General Min Aung Hlaing controls the military, he controls the police, he controls the border guards. So Aung San Suu Kyi doesn't have direct control over the forces that we've documented have engaged in these abuses, but she does have a responsibility to do everything that she can to call out these abuses, to force an end to what's going on.
Well, Tun Kin, I want to turn very quickly to the 1982 citizenship law with which you were effectively stripped you became stateless. And even today, Rohingya are not granted Burmese citizenship. Could you tell us very quickly what the implications of that are?
Actually, 1982 citizenship law deprived basic fundamental rights of Rohingya. Because of that law, today 1.3 million Rohingya become stateless in their own state. Because of that law, even myself, I'm not a citizen of Burma, even though my grandfather was a parliamentary secretary. That law designed for Rohingyas and other minorities in Burma. Particularly, they are practicing for the Rohingya Muslims. So because we don't have national scrutiny card after introducing that law, so we can't go to university, we can't get married, we can't move from one village to another. That is what they are practicing. So the point here is, I point here out what we are facing today is decades of persecution going on against Rohingya. Right now, mass killings going on. Is a genocide where direct killings involved by Burmese army. We need urgent UN intervention to send UN peacekeeping force to Arakan state to save the lives of Rohingya before too late, where death toll is increasing. So we are a people 1.3 million in Arakan state begging, appealing international community to come and save us. That's what people have been telling from the ground. You know, day by day, death toll is increasing and continuously.
We're going to have to leave it there. We thank you so much for being with us, President of the Burmese Rohingya Association in London, and thank you so much to Richard Weir. That does it for our show. Tonight in New York, Juan Gonzalez will be unveiling his book at the New School. We hope everyone will come at 7 o'clock. Check our website. I'm Amy Goodman with Nermeen Sheikh.